this is Christina Cardinal with Radiant Astrology and with the New Paradigm Astrology Cooperative. And this is your Libra Full Moon, Blue Moon Starcast. Now, what makes this full moon special is, as I said, it's a blue moon. So that means it is the second Libra full moon in a row. And so when we have two consecutive full moons in the same zodiac sign, that's pretty rare. And that means we call it a blue moon. The moon isn't actually going to turn blue, but it gives us a second chance of the lessons of the sign of Libra. Libra being the sign of partners, of others. Libra wants to find balance and cooperation. Now, the first Libra full moon we had was at the equinox, March 20th. If you remember that, it was also a rare event. It was a full moon right on the equinox, like within hours, when the sun just entered Aries and the moon was just coming into Libra. So that was a full moon at the beginning of Libra. Now, the early degrees of a sign we're often eager to experience that sign, to fulfill its expression. And if you look back at that time, just consider what was emerging at the time around partnership and cooperation. You know, maybe some emotional things came to light around that time. And now at this full moon, it will be at the end of Libra. So it's at 29 degrees. Now that's the anaretic degree. It's a sign of a sense of urgency. It's like the moon or whatever planet is at the end of a sign usually wants to get on with business, you know, move on to the next sign. Because there tends to be a sense of maturity that happens throughout the transit of that sign. When we get to the end, there's some wrapping up to do. And sometimes it can be some lessons that need to be learned. It can take maybe more of a sense of effort on our part or more maturity for us to really integrate these lessons. And for this Libra full moon, again, it's around harmony, cooperation, finding balance, maybe even using diplomacy in order to try to reach some kind of harmonious agreement. And now remember, the sun is opposite. So the sun will be at 29 Aries. And so that really suggests this intensified polarity between the Aries sun, that's the independent warrior, right? Our sense of self, our ego, what our ego is willing to stand up for and fight for. And that's opposite the moon in Libra, you know, that actually really does want some kind of cooperation, wants partnership, wants to find harmony. And if there's some conflict there, you know, maybe you need to brush up on your negotiation skills so that you can find an agreement that is mutually beneficial, because that's what the moon ultimately wants. And maybe we learn some nonviolent communication skills as well. This is compassionate communication. You know, it's a way to get our message across so that it's really heard. And this can be especially helpful as Mercury has just entered Aries, and Mercury is on fire in the sign of Aries. You know, Mercury is communication, and it's how we think. And, you know, how we think often comes out in how we speak. And in Aries, it's direct, right? So sometimes that directness in communication can't always help when it comes to finding middle ground or finding harmony. May not get you what you ultimately want. So learning to communicate better, you know, take a breath before sending off that email or that text, to really align with what it is you want to achieve. Now, because these signs are at the end, or these planets are at the end of the sign of Aries and Libra, that really suggests a closure in a way, you know, perhaps something coming to either fruition, but also ready to move on, right? And this is echoed by Venus is also at the 29th degree of Pisces. And Pisces is the final sign in the zodiac. And so that really suggests something needing to be resolved, some closure, perhaps even something needing to be surrendered. Now, Venus in Pisces can be idealistic in love and maybe even unrealistic, right? Because Pisces is the sign of fantasy and even illusion. So when it comes to love, Pisces may even be in denial, not seeing things for what they really are, but rather idealizing her fantasy partner or yearning for some ideal love. Maybe there's a projection you have on someone or they have on you that finally needs to be spoken, to bring some sense of reality to your alignment with someone. Bring some sense of reality to your relationship. And because full moons bring things to light, perhaps something will come to light around how maybe your values haven't been in alignment, because Venus is our values. Maybe there's been some confusion there around expectations. Now, this could also be in terms of money. Money issues are also ruled by Venus, or money is ruled by Venus, and this could be bringing up issues and confusion. Maybe there's been some hidden information that comes to light. Now, in the US, we just had tax day, so that could have been a wake-up call for many people around finances, expectations, how we're spending money as a couple, that type of thing. And so as full moons bring things to light, it gives us a chance to reassess. Now, Venus in Pisces can also have a shadow of victim mentality, right? Someone could be playing the victim, and that could be really played up right now. Someone can really feel victimized, or, they want to be saved. And so we just want to be sure we're not enabling this sense of victimhood in others, seeing things for what they really are. Pisces can distort things, right? So this can just be that distortion in a relationship of some kind that needs some clarity. Now, Venus will soon cross the threshold into Aries on April 20th. So this suggests a new beginning in relationships around April 20th, and then as Venus moves through Aries. But for now, something needs to be resolved, surrendered, let go of in our Venus areas of love, relationships, money, and even pleasure. It could be we're taking too much pleasure in escapism of some kind, and we need to come to a reality. That could be a reality check of our addictions and things like that. So it's a wake-up call for where you've been in denial in these areas. Now, there's an unexpected element to this full moon, and that's because the sun will be conjunct Uranus, the great awakener. And now Uranus brings an element of the unexpected. Now, it'll exactly conjunct the sun on April 22nd, but for now, it's close enough to that full moon to have an impact, right? And whenever Uranus is in the mix, then that brings something that keeps us on our toes or downright even shocks us. Now, Uranus in Taurus wants us to accelerate and to upgrade in areas where we likely feel stuck or are clinging to some sense of security. But at this full moon, this is suggesting that something at your core needs to shift and change, right? Because Taurus tends to be where we procrastinate, or where we're just clinging to survival. But once we shift from the inside, the outer world will then reflect that shift. But change can be really hard and uncomfortable sometimes. But as I've said before with Uranus, it's basically ready or not, here I come. And usually we don't feel ready. That's the thing. We have to take a leap of faith, knowing that our evolution is at stake, that there's something that really needs to change, and it's time for that change. Now, I actually have an awesome video course I did with New Paradigm Astrology and the Dream Team astrologers on Uranus in Taurus. Now, this is one of the defining transits of our times. It's an 8-year transit that just recently begun. So if you're seeing this before the blue moon, you'll definitely want to check it out because we're having a once in a blue moon 50% off sale at newparadigmastrology.com on all of our video courses. So you want to check that out in the link below and learn all about Uranus and Taurus. And so as I record this, I'm really sad to report that we just heard the big news of the fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, which was such a devastating, shocking event. I mean, it holds a very special place in my heart as I lived in Paris at one time. And this site is such a jewel in the crown of humanity, not something people wanted to see. These really devastating images of this beautiful cathedral being on fire, this ancient cathedral. And while I'm not going to get into all of the astrological significance today, I will say that with Uranus and Taurus, we've been seeing the shattering of our sanctuaries and sacred spaces. You know, Taurus does symbolize shelter and where we go for shelter. Where do we go for shelter in times of grief like these, right? And with Uranus causing this shift in a paradigm, it's causing us to find new spaces of shelter. And ultimately, that shelter needs to be within, right? That sanctuary must be built from within. So I'm not going to get into the whole chart. Actually, it's really fascinating, some of the symbolism that came up from this really tragic event. And one of my really good friends, the amazing astrologer Leah Whitehorse of Lua Astrology, wrote a beautiful article on the astrology of that fire. And I'll have a link below if you want to check out that article. She's an incredible astrologer and writer. I highly recommend it. Now, there's so much to say right now about the global events, and I've spoken a lot before, and I've written quite a bit about Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn and conjunct the South Node, and how that's a symbol of the degeneration of the societal structures, and even our very own political life and our own daily life, right? That those things which we depend on to give us structure are actually now coming to a point of degeneration. And we're right in the middle of this aspect. Now, this full moon creates what's called a cardinal grand cross because it is squaring Pluto in Capricorn and the nodes, right? And Pluto in Capricorn is about power. Who has the power? And so in our search, in our Libra full moon search for balance and harmony, we want to really be conscious and careful of the underlying urge just to be right or to be relentless in order to get on top or just to show that we're powerful. Do we want to be right? Or do we truly want to find a pathway to cooperation? Now, that can be really challenging. And with Saturn and the nodes in Capricorn and Cancer, there's also part of this Grand Cross that has to do with seeking balance between that Capricorn rigidity and the Cancer fluidity. So something around maybe ruling with an iron fist that only creates resentment. Or being too controlling may actually even diminish your influence, you know? And who wants to be in a partnership with another who they don't feel actually cares about them as a person or respects them as a person, right? And this goes for personal relationships and even professional ones. So we want to return to our true values. We want to be sure that we are in alignment with what it is that we're seeking balance around. Show that we care, right? Know that sometimes it's not about being right. It's about cooperation and maybe even some compromise. Now, one final aspect I don't want to forget is there is a ray of hope in all of this madness, and that is that the moon sextiles Jupiter in Sagittarius. And the sextile is a very supportive aspect, right? So this full moon is being supported by the king of the gods, Jupiter in Sagittarius, in his rulership, and that can really help to restore our faith. Even if we've lost faith in another, or even in ourselves, or something we did from the past, or if something does come to an end, this moon sextile Jupiter promises that there is a reason to be hopeful and to be optimistic. You know, maybe even someone, symbolized by Jupiter, comes to help lift us up. Or maybe some spiritual insight finally clicks and we finally get it. You know, maybe we finally align with that calling and purpose. Now, Jupiter is newly retrograde, and that means that ultimately our search for faith is one that will take us within. And Jupiter is the divine. And so that means seeking the divine from within, because it's only within that we can find the source of our true inspiration. Everything else is just a symbol for what actually lives inside of us. But that doesn't mean that we can't continue to be uplifted and inspired by others. So one last thing that I want to mention about April 19th, it's the feast day of the Catholic saint of Saint Expedite. Now, Saint Expedite is the luckiest of all saints. He brings wealth and abundance and rapid solutions to problems. I actually have a little Saint Expedite right here that I got from Amazon. And he's got his little cross that says, Hode, which apparently means he will solve your problems today if you pray to him the right way. And apparently he also loves Sara Lee cakes. Yeah, that's something that I got a tip from Sphere and Sundry. I will leave the link below because you want to do a ritual on April 19th to Saint Expedite and ask him for some rapid help with your problems, ask him to bring you abundance. I've heard some amazing things from the folks at Sphere and Sundry, how people have gotten some miracles because of Mr. Saint Expedite. I've also got the holy water from Sphere and Sundry. You can just spray on yourself or on your altar. And you can also anoint yourself with the special anointing oil from Saint Expedite. I am not an affiliate. I'm not being paid for this. I just think this is amazing. This is the perfect time to be celebrating Saint Expedite. I mean, we are in Holy Week. You know, so many of us have our own ways of entering into spirituality and divinity. I'm not saying one is better than another, and you don't have to be religious or Catholic to ask Saint Expedite for help. So if it calls to you, I highly recommend you check out the Sphere and Sundry suggestions and check out some other offerings. And with that, I just wanted to wish you a really beautiful blue moon. Please go make the most of it. Please remember what it's all about. Remember about those heart connections, and that it's not about being right. It's about finding balance and bringing that Libra, that Venusian care and beauty and harmony from within to all of your relationships. That's it for this time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again next time. Take care. Bye.